Hi guys, so to prologue or not to prologue, that is the question this week. Either you've asked this question before yourself or you're wondering why in the world I'm asking a question like this. Well, I was part of that latter category up until about a year ago, and I didn't even know that there was a debate behind prologues. I was totally innocent to the whole thing. Didn't have a clue about it. But it exists, and boy is it a big debate. There's typically two types of readers. There's the type that reads every single page of the entire book front to back, and then there's the part that wants to get to the meat of the story and they'll just skip ahead to chapter 1. I'm a part of the group that reads every single page of the book, and it's been really difficult for me to actually understand why somebody wouldn't read the prologue. Because to me, it's part of the story, I should read it. In the same aspect, I also understand that everybody has different reading experiences and everybody has different reading preferences. I'm also weird because I even read the acknowledgements page of every book. So to prologue, not everybody will read this little bonus chapter at the beginning of your book. Like I just said, some people will skip over it, but a prologue serves as a sneak peek to the drama that awaits in the novel. A sneak peek to the core problem. It basically doubles as a palate cleanser before your 5-course meal. But does your novel need a prologue? Most of the time, the answer is no. I would change this question more to, would my novel benefit from having a prologue? Some genres are more prologue heavy than others. For instance, thrillers and crime novels seem to have a lot more novels that use prologues, and a lot of times they'll use them to chronicle or follow the story of a murder that happened 20 years ago, or maybe a ship sinking 200 years ago. I'm talking about Clive Cussler novels with that last one, by the way. While some may consider this a cheap way to catch the reader's attention, other people will appreciate this snippet for its long-term effects that it has on the novel. Science fiction and fantasy writers may use a prologue to uncomplicate a difficult world or perhaps a legend that exists within their world. This can save the writer from using too many info dumps. Now, as a prologue lover myself, I know that the significance of a prologue can have ramifications throughout the rest of the novel. I will read a prologue, and even if it has nothing to do with really the main story of the novel, I will look for clues and hints to try to solve the mystery of how the prologue comes into play. So for me, it keeps me flipping the pages and excited to try to figure out how that comes into play. But there's some who could not disagree more. Or not to prologue. There are some that think prologues are lazy, plain and simple. They think that if you are unable to include this information throughout your novel and weave it in organically into your story, then it shouldn't be there. Some prologues are used to better hook the reader because their first few chapters might start up at a slower pace. I am actually guilty of this, and this is the reason why I'm dumping my prologue. One of the reasons. I'll talk about that in a second. This can end up biting you in the butt if a prologue skipper picks up your book and chapter 1 doesn't have its own standing hook. They're gonna skip your prologue, which you dumped your hook into, and then chapter 1's gonna be too slow, and they're not gonna feel immediately invested in your book. So is the information in your prologue all important? Is it something that you don't want the reader to skim over? Then see if there's a way that you can work it into being actually chapter 1 and not the prologue. I always talk about Harry Potter, sorry not sorry, but the first chapter in the first book of the Harry Potter series, Rocky has an itch. Yep. Okay, he's got it. The first chapter in the first book of the Harry Potter series is a good example of what could have been a prologue. So chapter 1 of the first book in the Harry Potter series starts 10 years before the rest of the story is. This could have been a prologue technically because it's something that happens before the rest of the story, but instead it's used as a chapter, therefore nobody skips it. If this were a prologue and people had skipped it, they would have missed some important information. So if your information is super duper important and you don't want people to skip it and the reader experience won't be the same if they skip it, then you should try to incorporate it either throughout the book or just change it to chapter 1. So then really, what should you do? Should you write one or should you not write one? To me, write one if you want to. Most writers, myself included, later realize when we finish the first draft of the manuscript that the prologue is not needed at all. Most of the information in the prologue ends up throughout the novel or can be included throughout the novel, and it just doesn't stand alone by itself anymore. It won't hurt if you write a prologue, but that does not always mean that you should use it. While it is tough to trim anything from your novel, particularly an entire chapter, you can still put that prologue to use. That was a weird little thing right there. I realized early on that my prologue was not needed at all, and in fact confused readers because it was more of a flash forward than a prologue, so it messed with the chronology of my novel. So it had to go, which actually it still has to go because I haven't taken it off my website yet. Oops. I'm not deleting it though. That baby is gonna be kept online forever as a deleted scene. This is a little tidbit that you can give your readers after they fall in love with your story or while they're waiting for your story to come out. This is just a bonus chapter. Why not put it to use? Could you imagine if J.K. Rowling released any deleted scenes from the Harry Potter series? People would go insane. While I love prologues, my novel is not going to have one. It just didn't fit. In the end, it always comes down to personal preference. If you hate prologues, don't write one. If you love prologues, write one. And then if you're not sure, if you're somewhere in the middle, go ahead and write one and then see if you can just edit it out later. Always keep in mind that your prologue should benefit the reader's experience. I have a few mini tips right now, just in case you do decide to go down the prologue road. And if you do, just be wary of quicksand and snakes that might jump out and try to kill your novel before it gets off the ground. Number 1, your prologue should in general be shorter than the rest of your chapters. It should be quick. It should be a nice punch to the reader's face, literally speaking. I said that weird. There should be significant details in there that will better help the reader to understand the plot later on. And most often, the core problem is revealed in the prologue, the big question or the tiny little event that had a butterfly effect on the character's life later on and caused them to go down this road in the first place. Number 2, allow an appropriate amount of time for backstory if that's what your prologue is going to serve as. This is particularly for science fiction and fantasy writers because a lot of them may be tempted to fully explain their world building or their magic systems, and that's just not necessary. Oftentimes, it builds more intrigue and mystery for the reader if things aren't revealed or tiny details are left out, because it makes the reader want to find out if you developed it, basically. It's almost like a reader test. They want to see what that's supposed to be about. All right, and my lighting changed again. I'm the worst YouTuber in the world. Number 3, be sure to prune excess information out of your novel. As I said before, a lot of writers realize that they don't need their prologue. If you do think that there's key information that's still not explained anywhere else in your novel, and so you still want to keep your prologue, be sure to go through and just weed out everything that is explained later on in your novel, so you're not redundant. Getting rid of all that excess helps to strengthen your prologue and can pack more literary punch in those first few key pages. And number 4, as I already said, make sure chapter 1 has its own hook to account for those people that may skip the prologue. All right, as always, I hope that was helpful to you guys in some way in deciding whether or not you should use a prologue. So I'm curious, let me know in the comments down below if you are a prologue lover, if you're a prologue hater, or you just don't care. You'll read it, whatever, if it's in the book. I guess I'm that way too. I'm not really a prologue lover, I guess. I'll read it if it's there. So I kind of just contradicted what I said at the beginning of the video. Subscribe to my channel if you already haven't. I post new writing videos every Wednesday. And if you ever have a topic that you would like for me to cover that I haven't already covered, you can drop a line down below or you can tweet me at Vivien Reis and let me know about it. Bye guys. This has been lingering on the floor. It's a giant Kira hairball. I might need to clean the house a little bit.